Hey everybody, I'm Jen Vermos, physical therapist here at Resolve PT, and today we are bringing you our second installment of our series we are calling Wednesday Wisdom. And my guest today is Nathan Cook. Welcome, Nathan. So today we're going to be talking about all things personal training. So Nathan, if you want to give everybody an introduction about who you are, what you're doing, those types of things.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jen. So my name is Nathan Cook. I am the owner and personal trainer at Evolution Fitness here in Bend. I actually just opened up here about a year ago. Me and my wife moved here from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and I did the same style of training that I do now. I did it in Coeur d'Alene and decided I wanted to open up my own business here in Bend and live closer to my in-laws. And that's about a little bit of introduction for me.
Okay. So one thing that Nathan does that is different is the style of personal training. And so I'm going to have him talk a little bit more about the system that he uses, which is called ARX, or HIIT training or high intensity training. So what is the difference between using the ARX equipment versus a traditional personal training setting?
Great question, and something that I get constantly as far as what is the difference. So high intensity training, it's HIT, not HIIT, which a lot of people think about when you hear HIIT, but it is high intensity training. The high intensity portion is actually a measure of something. So intensity has to be a measure of anything. Intensity is really about the intensity of effort you put into any style of exercise you do. So what I do is extremely intense in nature, but the coolest thing about it is that it is the safest, most time efficient way of strength training possible. Through the ARX machine, it's one of those things where I can talk till I'm blue in the face about it, but until you kind of hop on the machine to see what it's all about, it kind of doesn't click. But what ARX is it's a computer-controlled, motor-driven piece of equipment that essentially whatever force you put into the machine, it'll instantly and automatically adjust the resistance to give you a perfectly matched positive and negative repetition throughout the entirety of the set. And then really going a little bit further beyond that, like what is high intensity training again? It's basically a set of exercise principles based on biology and physiology. And what we're doing is essentially taking all limitations you have and coming up with a program specific to the individual or client that comes in to to be able to have them achieve their wants, goals, and needs while being safe and extremely time efficient in nature.
Perfect. And I know the typical time frame for the exercise routine is 15 to 20 minutes, roughly?
Correct.
Okay.
And so when a lot of people hear that, I myself was personally very skeptical about it too.
Mm-hmm.
So because it is so intense in nature, you want to do it very infrequently and not for a very long duration. So you can do this style of training, which again, once or twice a week, 15 to 20 minutes per session. Or you can do another type of strength training program that is multiple times per week and longer duration because the intensity is not as high as what I do.
Okay. So I think a lot of times when people hear the words high intensity, that probably makes them a little bit nervous. And I know one thing that we hear a lot in the clinic is that old saying of no pain, no gain, that, you know, things have to be painful for you to be progressing. And so, you know, that's the one thing we know with strength training is that you don't necessarily have to lift a lot of weight. You don't necessarily have to be sore the next day. So can you explain why the no pain, no gain doesn't really apply for the things that you do as well?
Yes, I will do the best I can to do that. So the no pain, no gain it's not a really good model to go for. And you just briefly touched on soreness, which I believe is a good kind of starting point into this. So soreness, there is actually no evidence available right now that says being sore actually is indicative that your exercise was effective. So people always say, well, I need to be sore or kind of drained, wiped out, kind of beat up almost in order to have a good workout. And that's just not the case at all. We are looking to provide the stimulus you need and just giving the minimum amount of stimulus you need in order to see some kind of positive change. If you go above and beyond that, you are just starting to essentially hurt your recovery system moving forward. So your body needs a recovery in order to actually get stronger. But if you're doing too much beyond what your body can effectively adapt and recover from, then you can start to get the no pain, no gain style of thing where you do start to feel beat up. And if you do that long term, it can actually be extremely negative to your body and your health. And so we try to just find out what is a bare minimum amount of stimulus you need in order to see the positive changes in your body. Did that answer your question?
Yeah,
Okay.
and I think we approach that the same way in PT as well. Is I don't know who came up with the no pain, no gain, but it really isn't a solid model to follow, because pain is there for a reason. Pain is your body's way of saying something is wrong or we need to address something. So necessarily inducing pain with a workout or during a rehab process isn't always effective.
Right.
And so that's one thing that we try to minimize here in PT as well. So one of the other things that we have to really consider is, with our patients especially, is anybody that has pre-existing medical conditions. Are there factors that affect their ability to rehab, recover, those types of things that we need to take into consideration during the rehab process, such as previous surgeries, osteoporosis, heart disease, things like that. So how does that apply to the things that you do as well? I mean, how do you address those concerns that people might have with the safety of doing strength training?
Great question. So there is almost any condition you have, and there are some outliers, absolutely, but I can work with and around any medical condition that an individual may come in with. You touched on osteoporosis, and that just is a great segue into this as well, is because this style of strength training that we do has been proven to not only prevent osteoporosis, but also reverse osteoporosis and take you out of that disease state into the healthy state again. So, and the nice thing about all of these things is that you can adapt a program specific to you, your limitations, and make it to where you can still see progress long term. So there is a plethora of ways to work around an infinite amount of limitations that people may think they have. And it's one of those things where you shouldn't be scared. I mean, you should have some reservations, but bring those reservations into myself, and let's talk about what ways we can work around this and really take into consideration what you're going through, what your struggles are, and how we can get you healthier, stronger, and work around various medical conditions and limitations.
And I think that's one thing that we try to do really well in working together with healthcare providers is, if you're working with a personal trainer or interested in working with a personal trainer, we try to, with your permission of course, talk to them about the things that we've seen in the clinic, any considerations we have or concerns we have moving forward. So we try to work together as a team for the benefit of our patients and clients too. So, and then one other issue that we tend to run across a lot in PT is compliance with exercise, and really trying to encourage people to establish these new routines while they're in the rehab process as well. So why do you feel it's important for people to get into a good routine of strength training? Why is strength training so important?
There is an infinite amount of reasons people should strength train. I believe no matter what style of strength training you do, every single person should be doing it. Like I said, there is a list of things that can be a whole nother interview or conversation in and of itself. But the biggest thing is, just what you touched on, is the consistency portion. So anything that's done hard, progressive, consistently, and then also is you're adapting their program based on their recovery ability and how their adaptation's going. Viewing those four things, any strength training program will work for any individual. But the consistency thing is probably one of the hardest things to kind of go with. So a personal trainer can be very helpful in that sense because of that accountability, so to say. You don't come into your appointment, then you will likely get a text or a call from myself asking, is everything okay, what's going on, and what do we need to do to have you come back in later that day or later this week. And so that is really big because people generally say, I don't have enough time, or something came up, and there's a ton of excuses you can use. But the best thing about that is you have an accountability partner, and with the time dedicated to the exercise being a non-factor for people, anybody can sacrifice 15 minutes once a week in order to reap the tremendous amount of benefits you get from strength training as a whole.
And I think that's one of the barriers that we see in PT as well is, when you've gone through the rehab process and you're kind of back to where you feel like you want to be, sometimes you reach that threshold of, okay, what do I do after PT? I'm not coming into a clinic 2 or 3 times a week. I don't have anybody to hold me accountable, to continue on post rehab. And so that's why we really enjoy working with personal trainers and try to collaborate as much as possible to help continue that progress beyond physical therapy. So if you're looking for some accountability with your exercise routine, some additional guidance beyond physical therapy once you are finished with the rehab process, and especially with Nathan's concept of personal training, if you are short on time, I highly recommend checking out Nathan at Evolution Fitness. They can find you on Facebook, correct? And then his website is also evolutionfitnessbend.com. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us or Nathan as well. Thanks for your time, Nathan.
Absolutely, thank you.